Hi girls, today we're looking at levers, another biomechanical principle. Our learning objectives: understand what is a lever and list the three parts of a lever, understand the main functions of a lever, and identify what class level lever is used in badminton smash. Again, today I'm going to be fuzzing myself out as the screens are quite full, and I also have a video at the end. Okay, so before we get into definitions of a lever, it's really important to know that leverage is vital to understand and improve performance. Now, this is because the human body is, in actual fact, a system of levers, and to know how to control these levers more effectively will most often lead to a better performance. Now, we use our levers in our body to produce forces that act on other objects or implements in sport to engage in activities or games such as kicking a soccer ball or swinging a badminton racket. So a lever is a rigid rod that is rotated about a fixed point or axis, e.g. the shoulder joint. Levers are used to move loads and produce rotation of a body part. A lever is acted on by two forces, an effort force or a resistance force. There are two lever arms, the effort arm and the resistance arm. There are three types of levers: first class levers, in which the axis is located between the effort force and the resistance force. Okay, so first lever is up top here. Okay, so the axis, which is the fulcrum, is located between the effort and the resistance, so the load. Second class lever, the resistance force is located between the effort force and the axis. So second class lever is here. We've got the load in the middle, the axis or the fulcrum is at the end, effort at the other end. And we've got third class lever, so the effort in the middle, the load at the beginning, and the fulcrum or the axis at the other end of the lever. Okay, so third class levers, the effort force is located between the resistance force and the axis. Here's just a closer look at first, second and third class levers. So first class lever, we've got the axis, resistance and the effort at the shoulder joint. Second class lever, now this is probably the most simplest diagram to understand, so using an oar. So you've got the effort on the hands and the oar, so the paddle, okay, is the axis, so that's the rotating point, and then we've got the resistance force. And third class levers, obviously this is the one we're going to be looking at with a badminton smash. So you've got the resistance force, the effort, and the axis. Okay, so the arms are rotating. So the effort lies in the middle. You've got the resistance at one end and the axis at the other end. Let's take a closer look at levers. Really important to know that if you go in search of different information, some textbooks and internet websites will call these things different things, so that's why I've put in brackets what you may see in other textbooks or on the internet. So the load is also called the resistance force. The effort force is a force being applied, and the pivot, axis or fulcrum. Okay. Two main functions of a lever: to move greater loads with a set of amount of force, e.g. levering a heavy box with a crowbar, or to help move loads at greater speed, e.g. golf club or a badminton racket. So that's what we're obviously going to be trying to do. We're trying to move loads at a greater speed when we're conducting the badminton smash. So another example of a lever, so you've got the load in the middle, the effort at the handle, and the fulcrum or the axis at the other end of the lever, and that's a second class lever. Okay, so loads in the middle, effort at one end, and the fulcrum at the other, so the axis. Also really important to know that we do have internal and external levers. So internal levers are inside the body, external levers are outside the body. So external levers allow force and speed to be applied from outside the body. Perfect example is the oar of a boat or pole vaulters in pole vaulting. Internal levers are inside the body and are the most important levers for human movement. So we've got the joints that act as the fulcrum or the axis, the bones are the lever arms, and obviously the muscles apply the effort. So really important to understand those 3 points. Here's a summary of levers again. I've already explained this, so good idea to take a screenshot of this diagram because it's quite simplistic. And obviously we're looking at the third class lever, so the effort lies between the load and the pivot. Okay, so the pivot will obviously be our shoulder joint. The load is obviously the racket and the shuttlecock coming onto the racket, and our effort is obviously the movements in our arms. Okay, let's take a closer look at third class lever. So a third class lever is the most common type, and it's the one that's used predominantly in sport. So a third class lever exists when the effort force lies between the fulcrum and the resistance force. This is the most common type of lever. Muscles involved close to joints to provide the effort force between the fulcrum and the resistance. In sports, where we use a racket, for example, we are effectively adding another lever to the system of levers that are already working in the body. The body must coordinate the movements of all levers in a process often referred to as timing. So yes, you might have a longer lever, but if you don't get your timing correct, it's not going to be an effective shot. So a longer lever, as I've said here, allows more speed to be produced. And obviously with a racket in our hand, we create a much longer lever. A shorter lever is used for strength and also control, e.g. being on gymnastics rings. All right, so obviously in badminton we use a longer lever. When we put it in our hand, we create a much longer lever. Now, like I've said, when an athlete decides to use, e.g., some cricketers now use a longer bat to gain more speed, it increases the length of their resistance arm, and it therefore, like I said, it can increase the velocity at the end of the implement, e.g., the speed of the cricket ball getting to the boundary a lot faster. Okay, so if you use a longer bat, you can get that ball to the boundary faster. However, you must get your angular motion correct. So, e.g., if we use a longer lever to conduct our badminton smash, if we don't get our angle of release right, it's not necessarily going to go faster and end the shot. Okay, so really, really important. Yes, we can create a longer lever, but we have to get that angle of release. So when are we actually going to make contact? At what angle are we going to make contact with that shuttlecock? That's really, really important. All right, so just to go back to that, really, really important that you do know this one here. Okay, so longer lever creates more speed. Shorter lever is used for strength. All right, let's take a closer look at lever arms. So force arm is defined as the distance from where the effort is applied to the pivot. So have a think about the badminton smash. Where is the effort applied and where is the pivot? Okay, so the pivot is obviously going to be our shoulder point, but where is the effort actually being applied? Okay, so the upper arm and forearm are the force, but where is the effort being applied? Okay, have a think about that. Okay, so it's obviously the shuttlecock making contact with the racket. That's really important to know, so make sure you write that down. The resistance arm is defined as the distance from the load to the racket, to the pivot. Okay, so the pivot is our shoulder, but have a think about where is our load. Okay, it's obviously at our hand. Okay, so we've got the racket in our hand. and the load's going to be obviously applied to that racket head. Okay, so I did speak about this previously. So what is the advantage of using a racket in badminton? So it lengthens the lever, therefore we have a longer resistance arm. So a longer resistance arm equals higher speed, which can be attained when hitting the shuttle. But as I said previously, you must get that angle of release spot on. Speed is then transferred onto the shuttle. All right. Okay, let's take a closer look at the badminton smash and locating the aspects of the third class lever. So you've got here the shoulder. Shoulder is the fulcrum or axis. The effort is obviously the upper and forearm muscles, and you need to know what those muscles are. You can't just say the upper forearm in your multimodal presentation. You need to give me specific muscles that are being used as the effort. And the load is obviously the shuttle being struck by the face of the racket. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Got the load, face of the racket, shuttlecock coming onto it, the effort, forearm muscles, and the fulcrum or the axis is the shoulder joint. So, really important to know that when we are conducting the badminton smash, we have to shorten our lever. So how does altering the resistance arm, so bending and then straightening joints, make the badminton smash more effective? So bending the arm reduces lever length, allowing the lever to generate more force and to be rotated with more speed. So you have to think about it now. If you try and put your arm in the air, if you try and conduct a badminton smash with a straight arm from preparation to follow through, you're not going to get much force or speed. But if we bend it on that execution phase and then straighten it as we're making contact, we're generating more force and also speed. It's a bit like archery. Okay, so a bow and arrow technique, or let's look at the volleyball's serve. So obviously in that prep and execution phase, you're bending that arm back. So if you're right-handed, that right arm comes back, and then you're bringing that right arm forward. It's straightening as you make contact with that ball. Now that's to generate speed. If you just hit a volleyball with a straight arm from preparation to point of contact, it's probably going to go 5 meters. Okay, so we're bending that arm to generate force and speed. When straightened, speed at the end of the lever is maximized, allowing the racket head to travel at full speed. And obviously, we use a long lever to strike the shuttle faster and propel it forward at high speed. Really important to know that you must bend that lever in that prep execution phase and then straighten it at that point of contact follow through phase. So just to summarize what I just said, a straight arm creates a longer lever, and a longer lever means that more speed and force is applied. But again, you must bend that lever in that prep execution phase before you get to the point of contact. And as always, we're going to finish with a video. Again, this is a really useful video. It summarizes what I've said in a couple of minutes. If it is a little bit fuzzy, if you're hearing double in the background, please Google the title in YouTube.
Levers are a type of simple machine. They can be used to amplify force or distance. A lever is made up of 3 components. A force arm, which refers to the distance between the point at which the force is applied, and the fulcrum. The fulcrum itself, or axis, and a resistance arm, or the distance between the point where resistance is applied and the fulcrum. Levers can be classified as either first, second, or third class. First class levers can be used to amplify speed and strength. The fulcrum is between the points of force and the resistance. As the axis point is moved closer to the point where force is applied, the faster the item can travel. If it is moved away from the point of force, this enables a greater level of force to be applied. A second-class lever is characterised by having the axis at one end of the lever and the force at the opposite end. The resistance is located between them. Second-class levers have long force arms, allowing them to generate great strength. A wheelbarrow is a good example of this type of lever. The third-class lever is different again. Like second-class levers, the axis is at one end of the lever, but now the resistance sits at the opposite end and the force is between them.
Girls, that was a really good diagram to get down. So make sure you take a screenshot of that if you had time to do so.
Third-class levers have long resistance arms, which can generate great speed. Most levers within the body are third-class levers. The human arm is a good example. Consider a swimmer doing freestyle or backstroke. The arms are acting as third-class levers. The shoulder is the fulcrum, with the force coming from muscles in and attached to the upper arm. And the resistance is the movement of the hands against the water. Because the hands move a greater distance than the upper arm, where the force is generated, but in the same period of time, the speed of the hand movement is considerably greater than that of the upper arm. This is just one example of a third-class lever inside the human body. But there are also a range of levers external to the human body used in sport. An example is a tennis racket. It acts as a third-class lever. The shoulder of the athlete is the fulcrum. The upper arm and forearm muscles act as the force. And the ball being struck by the face of the racket is the resistance. The laws of physics would suggest that the longer the handle of the racket, that is, the longer the distance between the force and the resistance, the quicker the serve. Although this is true, in reality, the biomechanist must also consider how much control the player has over the ball, and therefore the desired accuracy. Over recent times, principles of biomechanics applied to modern technology has led to the development of an optimum range of lengths of the lever from hand to racket. The athlete will have more control with a shorter lever and more speed with a longer one.